Hey there, Internet. Welcome to the Hard On Gear channel, where I discuss and review my used and abused knives and gear so that you know what is or isn't worth spending your hard-earned money on. Lock that you're not going to get away with other systems and other locks and other knives. So I did strongly consider getting a fixed blade, and I did end up getting a fixed blade for my EDC, but I've also been carrying a Manix 2 as well, so I'm carrying both. I've been carrying both now for the last 3 or 4 months, and I'm just going to give you my thoughts on what I think about each option and which is better for which scenario. So I've carried different things throughout the years. Like I'd mentioned, I've carried this for about 8 years, 9 years or so, and I pretty much always had a folding knife on my person, in my pocket somewheres, but I've also typically had larger fixed blades. Things that are a little more large and unwieldy, such as the K-Bar USMC 1211 or the K-Bar large heavy Bowie. But these are work knives, and these aren't things you can carry on a regular EDC basis unless you live in some crazy place where that's normal. And if that is, then hey, cool. I wanted something a little more practical, and I wanted an EDC blade that I could carry on me. So I ended up getting this Grohmann DH Russell belt knife from suggestion from a supervisor of mine. Good suggestion. This is an awesome knife. I'm not much of a traditional guy, but I do like the unique shape of this stuff. The Grohmann knives have this back curve kind of blade style. If you want to try a budget version of this, check out the Cold Steel Canadian belt knife. $20 or something ridiculously cheap like that. After a few weeks, I really did realize that, first of all, people are always asking, hey, what's that knife you got there? And I know some people like that, and I'm a knife guy, and I like having knife conversations with knife people, but I don't like a bunch of random people asking me about my knives, drawing attention to it, because it just tells me people are looking at it, and it tells me that it's out in people's faces when they're seeing me in public. So not something I want to be carrying on a regular basis. So if you're going to fixed blade EDC, keep in mind where you are and what public perception is like in your area. So for example, if you go with New York City, you got to be very careful about what you carry and what you're carrying it for. In rural areas, you're probably not going to have the same issues. Carrying this would probably be pretty mild compared to some people out there. But I guess why would you? Why is this not enough? Why is this folding knife, especially a rugged folding knife like the Manix 2 from Spyderco or the Cold Steel Recon 1, why is this not going to serve every purpose I could possibly have for it? Rugged knives, sure. Durable, the 940, probably not as durable. If you want a smaller EDC folding knife, this is going to be able to get pretty much everything done with like almost a 4-inch, yeah, is that a 4-inch blade or a 3.75-inch blade? Yeah, like 3.75-inch blade. Very still quite well built, quite sturdy, quite rugged, but still probably not going to hold up to as much as, certainly not the Manix 2 and definitely not a fixed blade. But again, is it going to last through most of your wear and tear in your daily use? I'd say absolutely. I guess the line here is, are you going to be prying or twisting or bashing something with your knife? That's when I would suggest moving up to the fixed blade. Now, there's very different ways to carry it, and I think the big issue for a lot of people with a fixed blade is, for one, they're too large. Two, where are you going to put it where it's not jabbing into your side or bugging you when you're doing different tasks, whether it's carpentry or forestry or plumbing or fishing or whatever. These tend to slide away a lot easier, and you don't notice them in your pocket if you're, depending on what you're wearing and depending on the knife you're using. But I have no issue. I'm so used to wearing pocket knives in my jeans or shorts now, it's not even an issue. I mean, I still wear, I toss this thing in my sweatpants, I toss this thing in my gym shorts. I squat with this thing most of the time, not because I mean to or I'm doing it to be a dumbass. I forget it's in my pocket. It's just not that big of an issue. You just get used to things, and if you don't make a big deal out of it and you tell yourself, okay, it's annoying now, but I'll get over it in a couple weeks, you'd be amazed what you can adapt to. So it's a preference thing, and this really all comes down to preference, as long as you are able to do the work you need with the tool you're carrying. So certainly more durable, more rugged, and more abuse worthy, but again, don't abuse your gear. Be nice to it. Be better than I am with it. The only other thing there would be to think about the aesthetics. So if you can get away with carrying a fixed blade, and even somewheres like where I'm carrying this, most of the time I carry this appendix carry in this sheath with the belt clip that comes with the Esee Izula II kit. And this is my preferred way of carry because, first of all, it's out of the way. Believe it or not, even though it's in the front of my hip, you really don't notice it. I've learned to remember to keep my shirt tucked in a certain way so that this belt clip does not pinch me. It can sometimes, but I really don't notice it's there. It dangles a little bit, and it can be a little inconvenient. It has fallen out a couple times, mostly because I haven't resheathed it properly, and I've worn down the sheath quite a bit from lots of drawing and deploying and all that stuff, mostly just recklessly practicing for the sake of practice. Really think, as far as fixed blades go, appendix carry or scout carry is probably the least cumbersome and probably the least attention grabby way of carrying one. If I'm reaching or I'm stretching in a doorway or something like that, sometimes it'll show and I hope this is what they're glancing at. Well, depends on who it is. But if the fixed blade's what you're looking for an EDC, I would strongly recommend the Esee Izula or Gerber Ghost Strike or Bradford Guardian or something you can carry horizontally across your hip, because scout carry in the rear of your back and the small of your back, appendix carry the front of your hip, or even carrying this on your side, whether that's same side draw vertical, horizontal, or cross draw, it's super comfortable, super small, super versatile in where you can put this. This is going to do most things that you need knives to do. It's not slicey. It's not going to be nearly as slicey as one of these, or like a longer bellied fixed blade. But for the trade-off and the best of all worlds, I really think the Esee Izula II is the best you can go. And if you want more detail on that, I've done a full video on why I believe the Esee Izula II is the very best EDC fixed blade that you could choose for pretty much almost any scenario, as well, I kind of picked the Manix 2. And I guess we can't forget the Leatherman Squirt, which completes this EDC trifecta. I've also got a video explaining why I picked these three in combination, as opposed to just going with one or two individual knives. So pros and cons, you can really break it down like this. The pros of a fixed blade: it's stronger, it's more durable, it's going to last you without any maintenance, because you don't have to clean pivots or worry about screws or anything like that. A fixed blade should not break on you. A fixed blade will last you a very long time, and a fixed blade, for the most part, you're going to get more bang for your buck. If you pay $100 for a good fixed blade versus $100 for a good folding knife, you can get a fixed blade for $100 that will last you forever. You could pass that down to your kid, they could pass that down to their grandkids. Folding knives, unless you buy a really good budget brand or a really good budget knife like a CRKT M16 or like the Rat models 1 or 2, you're going to have a hard time finding a bang for your buck folding knife for under $100 that's going to be able to put up with the amount of use and abuse that a fixed blade can. But if you are looking for some kind of budget everyday carry, you will probably get a better quality knife for less money, because there's less moving parts and less fancy stuff they have to worry about in the manufacturing process. And really, I guess the other pro about these, if you're talking self-defense, the deployment's quicker. You're never going to be able to deploy this quicker than you're going to be able to deploy a fixed blade. It's just a matter of fine motor movements and the amount of movements you have to make in a small amount of time, where you've got to pull this out, flick it open, versus just grab a handle and pull. It's not even close. And you're talking like cutting the time for drawing in half with one of these. So another benefit. Cons: they are bigger, they draw more eyes, and in some areas these are considered weapons. And I know, like in England and I think different places where you're just not allowed to carry fixed blades. Benefits of a folding knife: much more socially acceptable for the most part. It gets less socially acceptable when you're talking about things like this, but compared to hauling out something like this, you're probably going to get less stares. The Recon 1's an exception, of course, because again, you can't haul that out without somebody looking at it like it's a weapon. But these things look more like work tools. They're a little less scary. They're much more compact. And if you throw this into your suit going to church, as per the Warren Osborne design it was kind of created for, you could use this for a work knife, or you could bring it to a grocery store, or you could wear it to a wedding. So there's a little more versatility with that. And you can pretty much do all the same stuff. You just can't twist and beat and pry like you can get away with. Not that you should, but you can get away with it with these. Con: defensively, if you have to defend yourself against whatever kind of coyote attack you're dealing with in your state, country, or province, or whatever, a folding knife's always going to be at risk of failure. So it might not deploy when you need it to, especially if you're in the States or somewhere where you're allowed to use automatic knives and fancier things with mechanisms that could break and or fail and or collect pocket lint. Bit of an issue. And you can check out the video I made talking about the thoughts around changing your EDCs up on a regular basis and why you should probably use the same thing the same way every time, so that if you do end up in a situation like that, your fine motor movements won't have to all work in order for you to get to your knife, deploy it properly. You want to be able to do things as roughly, as crudely, and as caveman-like as possible. And folding knives just add to the little tiny movements you've got to make. So I'm a really big fan of the Spyderco. It's a very large hole. You cannot miss. Well, you can, but it's very unlikely. The Recon 1, I've got the thumb stud flipped on the right side, but it's pretty hard to miss, but you can miss it. The Benchmade, where it's a little bit more narrow, you certainly can miss the deployment, but as this thing smooths out, it gets harder and harder for that knot to just fire awesome every time. Really big fan of this knife. Yeah, the Manix 2 is just where it's at as far as ease of deployment and accuracy and consistency of deployment. So just something else to think about when you're going fixed blade versus folding knife. As far as EDCs go, I would recommend a durable steel like something like the 1095 carbon steel that Esee or Ontario Rat knives and a lot of different companies use the 1095s. It's too good. High carbon steel like that, it's the best. So there's different things like German stainless steel and a lot of these different knives. The Groman belt knife, for example. I don't know if I want anything more chippy than an S30V as far as an EDC folding knife. You can get into S90 and S110, and they're going to chip easier, but the edge retention is going to be better. I'm talking from someone who's never used these knives, just watched a bunch of videos on all these exotic, expensive knife steels that I've never had experience with. But I don't think I'd want an M390 knife for a folding knife, work knife that I'm going to use on a regular basis, because I don't want to have to sharpen it in the field for 3 hours to get it cutting again. I'd rather it be even an Os 8. I've used this Os 8 knife for a long time, and it does not chip. It rolls, and you will blunt the tip off, but you can reprofile it fairly easily without too much work. If you just need a knife to slice, chipping's not that bad. If you need to do some consistent hard use tasks, you're better off not getting a chippy knife seal anyway. So I would recommend something not too hard, and there's a difference between edge retention and hardness. You want edge retention and toughness. Yeah, you want good hardness, good edge retention, but if it's so hard and such good edge retention that it's no longer as tough as it needs to be, you might want to have both a fixed blade and a folding knife so that you can use fine slicey stuff for your fancy expensive knife, and then beat on stuff with your fixed blade that's got a higher hardness or higher toughness in the carbon steel. And we could talk about a bunch of other stuff, but these are things that I was wanting to be answered when I was looking for the answer to this very question, which is, do I go fixed blade or folding knife when it comes to an EDC? Because fixed blades are great, but could I find the right one to make it worth me carrying it? Because if you're not going to carry it every day, if it's not comfortable enough, then what's the point of getting it? And hey, save queens and collections, sure, but I like to use my knives and at least have a purpose. And if I'm talking an EDC knife or an EDC fixed blade, I got to know I'm going to wear it. So great choice for that. Great choice for EDCs as well. I think the combo of these three really will get me through just about any situation. And I do have larger fixed blades normally in my car or in my day bag or somewhere's not too far if I need one. If you have any thoughts or comments that you'd like to add down at the bottom, let me know. The affiliate links are down below as well if you want to buy knives and gear through those links and help support the channel. Click through those, and most of these knives, if not all of them, are down there in the Amazon affiliate links. For now, this will be the Hard On Gear channel signing off.